değerlendirme panelini sunmak üzere sözü Çetin Tüker hocama veriyorum.
I would like to give the word to Mr. Çetin Tüker for this evaluation part. Hello, I would like to welcome you all in the review panel, all the authors, organizational committee editors. I would like to congratulate you for this successful symposium. I'm thankful to each and every one of you. In this review panel part, the challenges that we have been facing on the field, and also the topics that we have discussed in these 2 days during this symposium. We will be reviewing them, which are going to be shedding a light for future studies, research, and symposiums. It's going to be making a starting point for them. That's how we wanted to incorporate a review panel in the end. I will try to share my screen. Can you see it?
Evet, görünüyor.
Tamam, peki.
Okay.
Şimdi burada bir internette gördüğüm bir bilimsel içerikli bir karikatür var.
There was a scientific
alanla ilgili böyle hem komik hem de eleştirel
piece of cartoons that I found on the internet. I produced my own version.
bir makale de var hatta.
One of the papers is indicating me actually.
Ben
Why did I want to do this? Because I started to get involved in this design education years ago. My thesis on qualifications in art was about graphic design. And in the later stages, I noticed that I don't have the relevant knowledge for design education. I went to Middle East Technical University as a special student. Professor Kürşat Çaltay, I received some information, a course from him on the field. So I had to go to Ankara for that. After this course that I received in 2010, I had a new perspective on the field. And then, since 2018, I've been making another PhD in Yıldız University in the Department of Architecture, and my subject is about distant education in architecture. Before the pandemic started, we started to think over what can we do in online education in the field of architecture. That was my field. During my PhD, while I was writing my thesis, I had to read many papers. There were some subjects that were repeating themselves. I saw this cartoon. I mean, the topics were different, actually. It was for the physics field of physics. I thought about writing down a similar thing for the design education. Types of design education papers, it says as a heading, as you can see. So what we see frequently in our field is my case study during my class. Most of us are education professionals. So the courses, through the courses that we provide, a research is carried out. I mean, case studies are what we work on. In one sense, we know good about it. On the other, it's easy for us. Another one is a theory article about an outdated problem. You know, the problem is already over. The problem was there 30 years back, but still a theory is written down. Another one is experimental research with wrong methodology. Most of us are design education professionals, but about research methods, our knowledge is limited. Unfortunately, while making graduate and PhD studies, the information provided is not as deep. We have to learn by ourselves. And one of the things I will be talking about very soon is when there is no instructor, we tend to make mistakes. We learn wrongly, and it's taking a lot of time to understand that we learned it wrongly. And sometimes we are writing down papers and papers are published. An article attacks a non-existing problem. A problem that never exists is shown as if it exists and providing a solution about that. We wrote our highly biased opinions without supporting them with evidence, and the editor accepted it. This is a frequently seen format of paper. I wrote this to praise the Bauhaus. All the texts that I see in the introduction parts, we see it. They start with Bauhaus. We still think learning styles is a valid theory. This was falsified. It was proved that it doesn't exist. It should be forgotten, but unfortunately, that's not the case. It's so common that it's not possible to delete it from the literature. There are still papers that are written down in this field. Furthermore, a recently published systematic analysis shows that in our country especially, almost 90% of the education professionals think that this learning styles theory is still existing. We made an experiment but gave no information on how we did it, so no one can replicate it. And don't ask how we collected data. This is another one. We read a paper, however, there is no chance to repeat it, and there is no information provided about the way it was collected, so you cannot rely on that data. I developed a software that no one can use, even me. It's me. I also am trying to develop some softwares, but later on I noticed that even I don't use that software. I'm not able to use them. Another one is very rare, nicely written article with claims supported with evidence. This is what we are looking for, evidence-based results. If there is an argument, it should be based on experimental evidence. No one will read it because it doesn't praise Bauhaus. Yes, in the introduction part, it's about an experimental paper format. We cherry-picked articles about creativity and still claiming it is only for gifted students. This is one of the myths in our field. In 1980, Bilge wrote a book about basic design and creativity. On page 14, our professor is based on the information of 80s, and creativity, they said, can be fostered with some sorts of choose.
Reddedildiğinden bahsediyor. Sene 1980.
But this information is based on 80s. To what extent this has changed? To what extent we've been using education technologies, it's still disputable. O Bauhaus, My Bauhaus is another one.
Gönderme yaparak Ölü Ozanlar Derneği'ne gönderme yaptı.
Dead Poets Association, there's a reference to that.
Gereğinden fazla vurgulandığını
Bauhaus is overemphasized in the field of education.
makale olarak bunu da söyleyebilirim. Şimdi Bauhaus'tan bugüne 100 yıl geçti.
Since Bauhaus, it's been a century. In the field of education, many things have changed. And it's going to be a critics for my field. Little part of what changed is transferred to the design education.
Ekran paylaşmayı nasıl durduruyordum?
How do I stop screen share?
Gerek yok. Neyse, peki.
Okay.
Şimdi bu biraz tartışmayı açmak için gösterdim ben bunu. Birazcık
I wanted to share this to open a discussion, to provide a critical perspective on my field.
Anlatmaya çalıştım. Belki biraz daha netleştirmek adına hani şunlar.
In order to clarify it further, I can say the following. Yes, we are doing case studies. I also do it. I know why case studies are carried out, because we are education professionals in the field of design, making research. Is important. As an alternative, control group research provides more clear information, but it's not easy. You need to be applying two different methods to two different groups in a classroom and collecting results separately. It's not easy, but if it can be done, data that you receive is going to be more clear. When you do case studies, frequently you receive positive results, but when you think it over a scale between 0 and 10, if it's 3, you tend to say positive. If it's 8, still you would say 8 and positive. But there is a difference. And also we have some prejudice against education. Student-oriented learning, constructivist learning is what we want to apply. But when you have a look at the literature, especially the novice learners, constructivist learning does not look so efficient. For this stage, direct learning is better, where the instructor is dominant, the instructor is guiding. So there are relevant methods. John Sweller in this field, Mariam Briere, Fred Pass, and Richard Clark have plenty of theoretical and experimental papers. And as a last point, creativity. Yes, every instructor wants their students to be as creative as possible. We were talking yesterday whether crisis triggers creativity all the time or not. What are the parameters or stress? What sort of a creativity is needed in the field of design? Of course, there are different types of creativity. Of course, we are talking about a creativity that is mainly based on providing solutions to problems. It's not about the creativity of the artist all the time. At the highest cognitive levels, some sort of planned action is what we are searching for. Committee load theory of John Sweller explains this part, why stress reduces creativity is explained here. Problem-solving skills are reduced, are weakened with stress. Richard Mayer, Richard Clark, and Paul Krishna has got experimental and theoretical papers and books about this point. Yes, I just wanted to warm you up, to have a hot discussion with these words and opinions. I am just taking a step back to give the words to you so that I can receive your opinion about this subject. Thank you very much in advance.
Bu arada sanırım el kaldırılırsa buradan görebileceğim.
If you can raise your hands, I can see your hands.
İsterseniz şeyden başlayalım. Dünden bugüne aktarılmış olan konudan başlayalım. Yaratıcılık
Let's
konusundan.
start with the creativity part that was coming from yesterday's discussions. How can we develop it further? Is it coming inherently? Do crises trigger creativity? Under which circumstances does it take place?
Nihal Hanım el kaldırdı, Başak Hanım el kaldırdı galiba.
Evet,
Nihal
şimdi-
and Başak are raising hands.
Nihal Hocam, isterseniz sizden
Yes, let's get started with you, Miss Nihal. Hi,
merhaba. Yıllar sonra sizi görmek tekrar...
it's so nice to see you after years.
Evet, aynı şekilde benim için de çok memnun oldum.
The same from here.
Heyecanlandım.
I feel
Tekrar
excited to see you. I would like to thank again for this
Çok
beautiful
güzel
organization.
bu
It's
konuyu
a
konuşmak
nice
için.
opportunity to talk about this issue,
Sunumunuzu
this
izledim.
subject. I would like to thank you for your presentation also. It has been such a nice summary. Just shortly, I would like to say the following. Yes, just as you put it, we are all designers. We are in the field of design education. However, the action of design, how it is done, and educating people, guiding people about these topics, I really feel we need to get more equipped. We need to train ourselves. We need to accumulate our experience about this, because with our experience that we received during our education in the field of design, we are going into an action of teaching, but you are learning it while doing it. It's like an apprenticeship process with a master. That's something that we need to consider. I was also trained in that way with an apprenticeship and methods. But you know, we need to think much more over how to provide design education. And we need to get specialized in this field. That's what I think. So that's the reason why I wanted to take the word. Thank you.
Evet, ben de teşekkür ederim.
Şunu söyleyeyim bir de bunun için çok önemsiyorum. Çünkü ben kendi yaşadıklarımdan bunu görüyorum. Yani tasarım eğitimi...
Why do I think it's important? Because in my experience, being involved in this design education field, over years and years, I've started to feel less qualified, less prepared. I feel an urge to get more prepared, question more things, try out new things. That's what I personally feel in this field. It's a never-ending process. These are the feelings and emotions I got upon my experience. Thank you.
Ben de teşekkür ederim. Benim de kendi adıma hislerim genellikle şöyle oluyor.
On behalf of myself, I have some certain feelings. I'm trying to apply some certain things which I read. Yes, we are doing my practicing it. And actually, we assume that we know some certain things. I think that I know some certain things, but they are all being mistreated. And as long as we read, I think that we're all thinking in this way, but they're not paying the way that we know. Whatever we know, and the environment that we are involved in is changing and becoming invalid. And this is a renewal and also amendment process for me. Başak Hanım. Yes, hello everyone. Under the stressful conditions, the creativity is having a certain impact, and according to the latest studies, this is something still uncertain. But it's a fact that we're all dealing with actually psychological creativity, and we are creating an output. There are two types of creativity, and it is the cognitive and also the sensitive creativity. And when we speak about that stressful, abusive type of creativity, it is something different. When you find out a vaccine, if you're carrying on a study about vaccine, it is a more cognitive type of process. But in our field, in the design education part, there is more sensitive type of approach. And mainly it is related with the mood, the mental state, and related with that issue, uncontrollable and challenging conditions related type of creativity has got a negative connotation, negative correlation. The researchers are pointing out that according to individual differences, it is showing a differentiation. I have experienced this from my studentship times. An uncertain stress environment was so much challenging me. It was directly related with the pedagogical approach. It was so much related with the actually impact of my teachers. I was having a negative impact. The teacher, the tutor, who was having a different approach, was urged to have a different approach, is directly related with it. I totally believe in that. We should not totally leave the student all alone. We should not also having very critical approach against the student, because the stress that we are creating among children, among students, is having a challenging and actually pushing impact. Throughout the history, it has been experienced a lot, and I am totally thinking that the stress and stress-related burden is being affected. And I see this, I observe this, but there are some certain limitations which I am not forgetting. Thank you very much. We have a sound problem, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, yes, this. You had a problem with the sound. I could not see. I could not hear, yes. The increase of stress burden is, of course, affecting the communication. And this is what I have experienced. This is what I have come across. And having some certain limitations at a certain level is increasing the level of creativity personally. If we do not have some personal factors involved in this process, or as long as we have got such kind of situations, it is changing and varying in content. You have mentioned this yesterday, and when we consider the issue with the educational technologies, and there are some certain basic theories And one of them is the cognitive load theory. And according John Smaler, Merriam Boer, and Fred Parson, in the field of educational technologies, is placing forth some certain theories. It is coming from the educational psychology, and it's got a background in the past, and long-term and short-term memory was present. For example, it was determined like that. Now we are not speaking about short-term memory. We are speaking about the productive memory, and we are speaking about. There is an article which I would like to give you the name of the article. It really worth to have a look at that. When we speak about creative stress, under creative stress, why don't we have actually an outcome? It is really affecting that. And in order to solve a problem, basically making use of the informations that we have learned before. And when we are solving a problem, if we do not have any learning beforehand, we will have a free flow. And we are trying and sometimes solving and sometimes making mistakes and finding out a result. And biologically, it is something in our genetic codes. And from birth, less or more do have a certain level of creativity. But in the field of design, in such kind of functional problem-solving points, when we come to that point, the problem-solving methodology and the informations need to be used. And all of these informations are being kept in our long-term memory. In our working memory, we are processing them. And our working memory has got 4 or 7 chunks. These chunks are limited in number, but in content is eternal. It's endless. In graphic design, you collect your information, your data, and the knowledge in another chunk. And in the third chunk, you have got an outcome. Stress is decreasing the amount of these chunks. It is not being between 4 and 7. It is being between 1 and 2. In such kind of a situation, you are becoming as a person who is not able to think about. And there is a phonological group, our internal voice. And when we make it busy with another sound, since that we are not able to think, we are not able to actually act. And the reflexive information and knowledge are being applied without getting involved in those chunks. And it is not possible for the students because they do not have some certain reflexes. In such kind of a situation, when you actually lead the student to solve a certain problem, the student is having a very smaller scale of working memory, and by trying and doing something, when tries to produce something, becoming more stressful, and some of the students are totally getting lost and not being able to do anything. At this point, the education experts do have a certain role to play. We need to take it out from this vicious circle, and we need to allow them to operate, and some problem-solving skills and competencies and approaches may be given to facilitate the process. And beforehand also, it is possible to give this. We are giving different lectures, and for each of the speakers, we need to think them equally, and how we can do the design lectures, and is this a problem or not? Just as I am giving, for example, in the computer environment, how it is going to be done is another matter of discussion. With the same methodologies, we cannot resolve them. On the other side, we all do have a working environment, and we need to place it forth. This is what I would like to make a research about. Orbital load related with learning is being explained with this theory. It is essential to have a look at this. This is what I think about. And the creativity do have different layers. It has got multi-levels. How many of them is genetical? How many of them are being learned later on? At a very early age, it is possible to have some certain learnings. What is and how is it taking place should be searched in different fields. I'm sure that there may be some researchers, and we need to follow them very closely. This cognitive load theory, when I look at the field researches in the field of design in the educational articles, is not being mentioned. In one or two articles it's being mentioned. John Swellers is the owner of this theory. He has done one of them from Australia. He is living in Australia, and the other one is being done by a Chinese team. I could not find anything else. Having only two articles all around the world is something strange. How no one has seen and recognizes is something very interesting. And I believe that this is something to be criticized. And it shows that we are following the educational sciences far behind. This is what I think about. I'm sorry if I have spoken a lot. Let me pass the floor back to our panel speakers once more. Maybe I may add something. Thank you very much for this final panel session. Actually, this has created a stress. We were unprepared for the COVID period, and it was essential for us to go through all of the methodologies. As a result, we consider it as a chance. Both in the online platform, I have never given such kind of studio lessons intensely. And as a person who is using international platforms this much, with such kind of webinars and such kind of interactions, I have not seen them. For this reason, this was a turning point for all of us. And we still continue to use some certain resources. Maybe it would be fine to speak about the things that you would like to hide and keep for yourself. I mean, not hide, but keep for yourself. There may be some meaningful things which you find it very meaningful. And in all of these interactions, we do see some parallel outcomes, and listening to you was very interesting. I'm very glad that this topic was being selected for this year's Grafist. And absolutely, and this has just opened our horizon and extended our horizon. I believe that this is this will be a type of a peak point. This is what I would like to share with you.
Evet, isterseniz biraz şöyle diyelim. Acaba bu süreçten neler kazandık? Biraz da işin bu tarafına bakalım.
Let's have a look at this. What we have gained and what we are going to have with those applications. What we are going to apply from now on, what we're going to integrate from now on.
Söz istemek istedim ama
I just wanted to take the floor, but I couldn't do it.
Tamam. Bu kognitif load teoriyle ilgili ben ufak bir ekleme yapmak istiyorum.
I would like to make an addition about this cognitive load theory. About autistic children, we have had a study.
Bu rahatsızlık hissettiği durumlarla ilgili
When they feel something
bu
uncomfortable,
teoriyle de ilişkilendiriyorlardı.
they were relating
Belki o
it with this
taraftan da
theory. Maybe
fayda
from that
sağlayacak
side,
bilgiler
it may be
çıkabilir diye ben
possible
bunu
to
bir
make
eklemek
use of some
istedim.
certain informations. This is
Hani
what I
teoriyle
wanted
ilgili
to add.
araştırma yapıp hani bunu derinleştirmek isteyen kişiler olursa diye. Bir de benim
And
açıkçası dün çok ilgimi çeken
there
sunumlardan bir
is
tanesi
one
Zeynep hocamızın,
point,
Zeynep Yazıcıoğlu hocamızın
Zeynep
sunumu oldu.
Yazıcıoğlu's presentation, which I was
Çünkü
interested in.
aslında eğitimdeki hani büyük bir
Because
dönüşüm aşamasındayız şu anda. Tek anlatıcının ve dinleyicilerin olduğu bir ortamdan biz
in an
şu
environment
anda web
where there were
platformlarını,
only
online
single
platformları
listeners
kullanarak
and single audience,
daha
we are
farklı
making
bir
use of the
sürece
online
gidiyoruz ve bu
platforms and social
platformların
media and leading
kullanımında
towards a
genel bir
different
eğitim var
direction.
aslında.
And mainly
Şu
there is
şekilde Web 1.0'dan
education in the
Web
usage of
2.0'a
these platforms.
geçişimizde
So
ki
from Web
işte
1.0 to
hani içerik
2.0,
sağlayıcı olmaya başlamasıyla kullanıcıların biz
and
artık hani bu eğilimi gösteriyoruz bu tarz
we are
platformları
showing the
kullanırken.
tendency when we are
Eğitimin bu
using such kind of
platformlara
platforms.
geçişinin sanki eğitim üstündeki öyle bir dönüşüm, öğrencilerin de katılımcı olmalarına yönelik bir dönüşüm
And
başlamıştı ama
it
bunu
was a
hızlandıran bir
transformation
süreç
process which was
olabileceği
including the
hissine
students'
kapıldığım
participation.
bir
But of
sunum oldu
course,
açıkçası.
it was
Belki hani bu
accelerated with this
konuda
period.
konuşabileceğimiz,
Maybe
görüşebileceğimiz
we can
bir
speak
konu
about
olabilir diye bugün dile
some
getirmek
certain
istedim.
issues. This is what I would
Çok
like to
teşekkür ederim.
mention. I
Tüm
would like to
sunumlar
speak
çok
out.
güzeldi.
All of
Herkes
the
için
presentations were
teşekkürler.
very good and very beneficial. Thank you very much.
Teşekkürler.
We thank you. Melih Bey, you have raised your hand as far as I can see. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank everyone, my young colleagues and Çetin. I'm very happy to see such kind of a wide scope organization. I would like to speak about my own experiences, what we have won in this process and what we have lost. It is not actually what we have lost. After experiencing some certain things, there are some winning, some positive issues. And we can transform everything into something positive because we do have a mind to do that, and the design will be helping us to do that. At this period, I'm feeling that I have lost my connection. When we are not connected, some certain transformations and transfers are not being that much productive and efficient, but it is not like that indeed. What we are experiencing right now, within these frameworks and different frameworks, it is possible to have different type of communication and connection, and all of that interchange opinions and ideas. When we use them efficiently, it is possible to get something. I myself not all alone, but I'm involving some different colleagues and some different speakers and people, and trying to fill out some certain points which seems to be missing. This is what I'm trying to do in the field studies. For example, when I continue to work and when I apply, even in this digital environment, we wonder whether we can do something similar, and we have seen that it was possible to do it. What I would like to mention here is in this hybrid environment, working environment, we do have the hybrid structures at the moment. It can be more actually efficient when we are not able to access some people. Of course, by taking away the distance, by taking away some certain issues, it is possible to carry on some activities. And with the people with whom we're able to have a one-to-one, face-to-face relationship, we continue to act together. And such kind of a situation is bringing us into a different point and providing an opportunity to develop design. And Habermas mentioned this period is a period which we are in need of knowing the things that we don't know. And 2020, in the first actually times of his interview in Le Monde, he is mentioning that. And we are learning something that we do not know. And when we look at this, stress may actually lead the design in a better way, when we make it something positive, when we take away the panic situation and then present forth our worries, actually, it may transform into a design, but experience should be involved in this. When we have lack of experience, that panic situation is leading us into a different environment. When we have, for example, practice, and when we have some certain tools, it is possible to transform it and lead it into a positive direction. In this 3-year period, we have collaborated with my colleagues, and in our classes, within that screen, for the people who are lost, in order to get involved in their world, we have thought that it would be possible to get communication by having right relationships. So it is just like an archaeological design. You're just getting inside that, and in order to create an actually environmental awareness, you are becoming involved in a more active situation, or different things may appear. What is important here is the student or the person who is participating in such kind of a situation will be leading towards some certain issues, and it is going to guide us to such kind of studies, and we will respond it in such kind of a situation. This is what I would like to actually say all about it. Thank you very much for now.
Hocam teşekkür ederim ben de.
I thank you.
Zeynep Hoca bir ara el kaldırmış gibiydi. Evet.
Evet, ben birkaç şey söylemek isterim. Çetin Hocam, sizin başta değindiğiniz Kur'an ve teorileri okudukça daha farklı noktalara geliyorum ve bildiğim şeyleri de
As
bilmediğim
I've been reading the theories of yours, I start to think over more and more, and I'm experiencing that also frequently.
kendi kendime eleştirmeye başladım.
I started to criticize myself in the countries where theories are formed, students, educational system, their backgrounds, and the situations where these theories are produced. And for my own experience, the group dynamics of the students that I've been observing in years, 5 different characteristics, 5 students with different characteristics may be dragging all those people, all those students to a different direction, or sometimes having a smaller group is having an effect. So the dynamics of the students is very important, and it's a variable about how to approach them. So adopting a certain approach throughout the year, even when you say that, the dynamics of that group leads to a crisis for the implementer. Each term, I find myself in the middle of that crisis, thinking whether things are going to be problematic or not in the end. How can we support the students so that we can have a more efficient process? Up until a certain week, until you catch that dynamics, you can feel that quite intensively. That's the reason why when we introduced online, the distant education, we were all in the same crisis. In that sense, digital tools were quite useful for us. The interaction in between students and the students that were feeding the dynamism in that group, their different perspectives being followed by other students, that synergy has increased the motivation. And another thing is the preparation lists, reading lists, 3 tours of workshop studies, being involved in them were very important. We didn't know about the pandemic coming. We did it as of September 2019. So before starting such a design process, something like a language preparatory class could be useful for the student, not only for the students in design education, but also for design in general. This can be conducted in general terms. Derya Karadağ, İpek Torun's words about the existence of digital platform, how positive results have been derived. Their presentation was very useful, and they are in parallel with our outputs. And also, Mahir's study, where they take students as a focus, as a center. They start with an excuse of themselves. You know, a hand drawing is expected to be good, you know, for a student in the field of architecture. Let's start with hand drawing. Let's start by self-drawing, we said. Throughout the studio studies, many asked us to do that. Hours were shorter, so they were overlapping. It was turned into a book that expresses themselves. A character design, space design, topography design, such processes were experienced. Yes, that's all. I would like to thank everybody for this fruitful and useful symposium.
Ben de teşekkür ederim.
I would like to thank you.
Eklemeleriniz için. Bu arada hemen eklemelerinize de birkaç ekleme yapayım.
Let me
Yani evet.
add some points to that.
Teorilerin araştırıldığı ülkeler tabii daha çok.
Of course, these countries are Anglo-Saxon countries.
Cognitive law theory insanın
However, you know, being equipped is modeled there, just like an equipment, a computer-like equipment. So every human being has got different similar equipments. From communal theory to cognitive theory. That's another article that incorporates the things that you were mentioning. And of course, there are some cultural differences. We belong to the Eastern culture, as you know, and this just reminds me of a new topic for research. I really wonder whether these theories produced in the Western culture, when they are applied in the Eastern culture, what sort of results do we get in such cases? What sort of potential hypotheses can we produce accordingly? Or what is more important is these theories, when they are applied in the design education, in which ways they can be expanded? Because apparently there are such theories. However, in the field of design education, there is almost no study. That's the reason why over that body, a design branch did not take place. A branching didn't take place. So that branching needs to be done by us, needs to be produced by us. So these are theories that can be proved wrong. Yes, this and that can be done. But during design field, while implementing it, this and that should be there. In the Eastern culture, such additional expansions are needed. Just at this point, we should be in the operation. You know, this is something that we can do. Maybe in the next symposium, we can talk about these expansions. I have personally experienced similar things among our students. Sometimes two groups that were competing with each other, they were just dragging all the students behind. And just for the sake of that competition between those two groups, the level of success has increased so far, so highly. So the reason is high motivation for the course. Such things may take place. And they are a subject for further research, of course, in front of us.
Melih Hocam bir şey ekleyecek misiniz? Eliniz havada görünüyor.
Melih Görgün, would you like to say something else? Yes, what Zeynep was saying as a reference, I would like to make a correction there. Dear Zeynep, within that period, 3 terms, after 14 weeks of education, where we didn't have the opportunity to provide all the relevant examples. So those results were obtained after 14 weeks, making it a book and different chapters. It includes students of sociology, students of literature, architecture, stage design, performance arts. It's a result of a group work. Just as you said, learning from each other is fitting there very well, because we don't know much about each other's fields. That's why when they are coming from different disciplines, they know about each other, they are assisting each other, and they are learning. So it's like putting things in order, just like pieces of puzzle. So this dynamic enables them to work together. It's like a collective work. In the projects in other fields also, we need to be considering them. I am giving this information to the artists or designers. Against the theories that Çetin was mentioning, I really wonder what's happening in the provinces in the eastern part. What sort of things are corresponding? There may be some ancient pieces of knowledge corresponding to that since the past in the cultural heritage. There may be some pieces of knowledge, and when they are left there, we are always trying to complement over the information that we got from the Western part. When we have a better understanding and understanding of our own culture, we would be finding many pieces of information from the ancient times, and they can be turned into written format and they can be discussed. That's all from my part. Thank you.
Teşekkür ederim hocam.
Thank you.
El kaldırmış.
Elif raised her hand. Yes, please. Yes, hello. Participatoriness and collective work that my colleague was highlighting, I agree with him. After these 2 days, this is an important point that we can speak on. Just as I emphasized in my yesterday's presentation, where students feel highly comfortable were the projects that they were having a collective work. And this is a result that we received as an output in the end of the work. So what we are doing is a collective work. Everybody experienced a similar thing. So compiling these findings together, discussing them, graphic design, industrial design, architecture, from these different departments, what sort of experience has been acquired is very important. I would like to thank again to Grafist organization for this beautiful event. With Ecograda team, we conducted a trainers meeting towards the end of the first pandemic year among the member schools. What was this attracting my attention was, drawing my attention was, what sort of similar common results or solutions would be provided by similar applications. That's something that I have observed here as well. Apparently, there are many things that we can learn from each other. So these opportunities for cooperation should continue. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Elif. Ms. Dilek, just a short intervention to share my experience I don't know whether you experienced the same thing, hopefully not. In my classroom, 3 students, one lost his cousin, one father, one big brother. So under these pandemic circumstances, it's not all about closures, close downs, or it's not about being equipped or not, or something else. Grief was there. Maybe this can be taken into consideration as a field of research, because creativity and grief together. Many of the students have had remotely or closely grief processes, and they were taking the ownership of their job. Even though I advised them to have a rest, they refused, and they want to continue. They want to continue preparing things, producing things, using their creativity. This was a quite original experience. I just wanted to add this. Thank you, Melih. I'm raising my hand all the time, like a hyperactive child. But, you know, when my colleagues say something, it inspires me. Maybe it's something to do with old age. Ms. Dilek has touched upon a very important point, this grief. Since the time that we started to use screens, we all experienced these things. It's been a long period since the beginning. And one of the students has had an experience. He was sharing his flat with his cousin, and that person was quite sick. He was having a disease. There was an accessibility problem. There was this lockdown. They were not able to go out. Virus is around. And at the time, nobody left the course. But in order to improve that student's situation, we tried hard, tried our best to support that student. That's another point. Under that accessibility concept, I would like to say a few more things. There are students in other parts of the provinces, in their own settings, they were having some accessibility problems. They didn't have internet. They didn't have the opportunities provided by the school. They were outside of their comfort zone. There is no device that is accessible to them. So it was also a problem. And in order to find solutions, we thought over this along with my colleagues in the department. We paid efforts, and we assumed different roles to make all these things possible and positive. So we tried things out, and we also put some experience over our previous experience. Thank you. I would like to thank you. We have come to the end of our time. Only 2 minutes left. Is there anybody who would like to say something as a last word, maybe? None, I guess. Then I would like to thank you for your attendance, not only to this session, all the events, for listening, watching, making presentations, sharing your thoughts, being an author. We are thankful to Grafist Organizational Committee, to our editors, to our referees, and I would like to give the word to Aygen for the rest. Thank you.